Hey there! If you've made it this far, you've made it past my first filter, which was the third video in my series, so good job. I'll have filter videos here and there to make sure only the ones who truly want to be here are here. So as I've said in previous videos, the gloves are off. Time for the real shit. I get some main ideas from people before me, just as everyone does, but a lot of the details I come up with myself. I'm going to expose you to a lot of hard truths that are not easy to face. If you're really fragile at the moment, as genuinely as possible, you should seek therapy instead of watching my videos. You can come back when you're ready. If you do choose to watch them, you acknowledge that you're at least a little mentally tough and ready to proceed with harder self-development that's not all flowers and rainbows. You can choose the easy path or the hard path in life. The easy path can sometimes pay off for you quite nicely if you're lucky. The easy path is staying plugged into society, listening to everything every one of your bosses and leaders say, and never getting into conflict with anybody. You don't have to choose this path that I'm taking you on, which is the hard path. We need people on the easy path in a normal world where society is functioning as it's supposed to. There are many people who benefited from this system in a pre-2020 world. It was rewarding to go on that path, so they stuck with it and everything was fine most of the time. The issue with that in a post-2020 world is the system is no longer going to reward you for taking that path, in America anyway. You can get away with it for however long the system stays afloat, but whereas perhaps career knowledge was one of your best traits pre-2020, in a post-2020 world, critical thinking about everything you're being told is one of the most important traits you can have. I was lucky in that I was naturally encouraged to be an outcast thanks to all the gaming in my past. I was non-political for a very long time in my life, which naturally led me into centrism. I was also lucky enough to discover people like George Carlin very early in my life. However, as amazing as that man was, I still don't have to agree with 100% of everything he says. But it's important to recognize that everything he's saying is coming from a very high level IQ. Being an outcast and a centrist, being unplugged from society, naturally led me to question everything I heard from anybody. I would question everything I heard even in an amazing country such as Norway. But for my survival and the survival of my eventual children, it's my duty and absolutely required to question everything in a country as corrupt as America, where our politicians are bought out and hate our guts. They don't want the best for you, they never did, they want the worst for you. Or in a pre-2020 world, they wanted you to get by just well enough as long as you produced for the system. As long as you were a cog in the wheel, moving the gears of the country along, people generally left you alone and let you prosper. Again, there was nothing wrong with being a cog in the wheel. Those people uphold society. Those people are the backbone of any society. But if you're watching this series, it's because you want to improve yourself beyond the norm. To do this, and my mentors realized this way before I ever did in much more in-depth understanding, you have to unplug from the system. The system in this country is no longer serving you. You have to be on your own path where you objectively evaluate the pros and cons of everything you hear from anywhere. Who wrote that headline? Who wrote that article? What was the website it was on? What type of agenda does this person or website normally have? Does this agenda benefit you? What are their beliefs? What does the early life section of the person who wrote it look like? Be sure to notice patterns of what you see. Stuff like this is hard and not fun, but it's how you start to really understand what's going on and why. If you're getting your news from mainstream news, except very rare ones where the news anchor may get in trouble for what he's saying, you're not really getting anything. Some people actually got so brainwashed they defended the killer of someone who shot a 5-year-old in the face. People knew CNN and the like lied all the way back into the 2000s and 2010s and before. Jon Stewart, one of the idols of the left, encouraged people to distrust CNN and regularly distrust mainstream media. What happened? Why did the left suddenly get to a place where they trust them? The answer is fear. Fear is the oldest method in the book that the controllers of this country and of this world use to control you. Fear goes well beyond just scary headlines you see. They instill fear in you in many other, more subtle ways. People will actually get pissed if you tell them you're a centrist. They'll be like, "What, you're not on our team or their team?" People love teams. They love to root for someone and against someone. All this is tribalism manifesting in different ways. We're still in tribes. We're in all kinds of small tribes of all kinds. There's really nothing wrong with this. That's just the nature of how we operate. But tribalism is used against you by the ones running the show. They get you on Tribe A so you can hate Tribe B, never considering that Tribe C is an option. As many things as one particular political party are doing wrong right now, they're just the enforcers, the pawns if this was chess. You could say the president is the king or queen, though I wouldn't go that far, and then beyond even that, there's the actual hand of the chess game, the player moving the pieces. But regardless, the people enforcing what they're being told aren't the scriptwriters. They're not the ones writing the narrative, the rules we get saddled with. The people on the left or right are not your enemy. You're being tricked into thinking they're your enemy. If and when shit hits the fan, gunning down your fellow citizens is missing the forest for the trees. All I can say is your fellow citizens should not be the target. If you have to defend yourself or someone else, then fine. But your fellow citizen is not the perpetrator of everything going on right now. So what's sad is I'm a centrist and I used to be right in the middle. It used to be that both sides made good points and I could evaluate both. But as time goes on, I find myself becoming more and more right-leaning because they kind of just keep being right about everything. Things I heard from someone on the right that they said in an aggressive way that sounded crazy are now all coming true. To be on the right at all in this day and age is an act of courage. Funnily enough, something the left espouses is rebellion. They try to sell rebelliousness to the youth. Ironically, the most rebellious thing you can be in America right now is to be on the right and a Christian. That's the counterculture now. And the counterculture is always the culture that ends up eventually being cool. So funnily enough, the elite's constant attempts to demonize and discourage people from Christianity have actually made it a rebellious act. The young love rebellion. They love to rebel from their parents and from their schools. So we'll see where this goes, but the fundamentals of human nature aren't changing anytime soon. So the easy path is to follow everything society tells you to do to your own destruction. This is easy. Society gives you hardly any resistance by following this path, so you'll be heavily encouraged to choose this path. The hard path is the essence of self-development, the road much less traveled but much more rewarding. You're taking a risk of a sort by being on this path, but if you do it right, the rewards of this path can be 10 times that of the normal path, 100 times the normal path, even 1,000 times the normal path. Whatever you put your mind to and consistently work towards. And I'm not just talking about your career, I'm talking about your mental power and action-taking ability. The normal path puts you within a certain range of success. The hard path is a massive undertaking, but just like when you start lifting heavy weights, it's really hard at first and you get really sore, but over time you get less sore and it's less hard. The same applies with choosing your path in life. The best part is you don't even have to tell anyone you're on this path. I have to because I'm getting the word out and all this stuff, but you can pretend to be a normie if you want to. In my opinion, it's much better to fully embody the path you choose, but you do you. The easy path is automatically trying to discredit someone because they're not on the same side as you. This is ad hominem. This is pretending like nothing they say could be valid because you want to quickly categorize them in your head as dense or crazy. By the way, people would have called you crazy if in 2019 you said there would be a global pandemic and everyone would be wearing masks. The easy path is also trying to reduce your opponent's arguments to some cartoon drawing of them looking ridiculous. Unplugging from modern society and all the junk from it designed to weaken you and control your thoughts is a part of being on the hard path. Waking up early is the hard path. Eating right is the hard path. Seeking out alternate news is the hard path. Discerning truth from fiction is the hard path. Acknowledging that someone you idolize may not be perfect and may lie sometimes is the hard path. Acknowledging that someone you hate may have a good point occasionally is the hard path. Not just accepting that because someone's doing a silly dance on an app that what they're saying is suddenly true because they're dancing is the hard path. Being able to take criticism and not lashing out but instead learning from it is the hard path. Exercising regularly is the hard path. Controlling your emotions and logic is the hard path. Learning about how the world really functions is the hard path. When you're young, it's easy to sin, that's the easy path. When you grow up, you realize it's better to be virtuous, which is the hard path. The truth is, everything in this life comes back to you, and the more you sin, the more that will happen to you. I used to be agnostic for nearly a decade, but a few years ago I started rediscovering Christianity, and it's because I realized there's just more to all of this. The elites believe that too, that there's more to all of this, and they're not stupid, most of them are incredibly intelligent. Sometimes they'll act dumb, but the ones really running things don't have to pretend to be stupid. Their ego would never allow that. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I would argue that choosing the hard path is a necessity in the post-2020 world. Whenever someone's trying to implement a system for you and is pushed by the mainstream, and the mainstream figures are known to deceive all the time even by their own people, recognize that the system would only work in one of the rare countries with politicians that are actually benevolent instead of evil. The hard path is fraught with danger. You're putting yourself under a lot more pressure to perform, so you need a strong inner strength to be able to handle it. This is why in my first video I said to be like steel. Although consider what Bruce Lee said, he said that the stiff trees are the most easily cracked, while bamboo survives by bending with the wind. If someone punches you in the face, if you roll with the punch, it does much less damage. But you know how not to fail from my previous videos, so focus on your path. Focus on navigating the hard path. Speaking of the hard path, Scrubs is a great show all about walking one of the hardest paths there is, being a doctor or nurse. I'd highly recommend checking out the first 8 seasons of that show. It's a cult masterpiece. It's marketed as a comedy, but it's really not. It's more of a life lesson show. I will warn you, it doesn't have the modern sensitivity of recent shows. The characters are pretty mean sometimes. Be skeptical of everybody, myself included. I'm just some guy on YouTube. The people to not trust are those who never allow you to be skeptical of anything they say, and I'm not just talking about politicians. Anyone who constantly tries to appear innocent and uphold some hero narrative about themselves and control everybody is almost always a huge narcissist. Get yourself out of the rat race. Competition is good, but not if you blow all your savings to keep up with your friends. By the way, why did we ever agree to that term, rat race? I know, it's supposed to just be a joke and taken lightly, but that's how the elites get away with a lot of stuff, framing it as some joke. It's still something we tacitly agreed to, being called rats. It's a way of mocking us. Don't be a rat. Don't even jokingly think of yourself as a rat. You're a lion. Going more in depth on examples of taking the hard path, one example is I fractured my foot badly 2 years ago in the navicular bone. Everyone told me it would heal in a month or two, but I wasn't one of the lucky ones. My foot still has pain even years later. Now obviously I love to jog. I got very close to completing a 26-mile marathon when I was 20. I capped out at 20 or 22 miles without stopping before I decided to stop jogging. I've definitely regretted this decision many times, but over time I've come to realize it would have been easy for me to complete a marathon like that. It was initially very difficult, but over time got to where the jogging was just effortless, even for really long periods. I could have done it, yeah, but there would have been an emptiness from the accomplishment coming so easily. I've realized I'm getting a lot more growth still trying to get back into jogging and eventually a marathon, even though my foot is still injured. But I had to accept reality. I really shouldn't do this until my foot's fully healed. You don't want to mess with permanently injuring your body, so although I very badly want to get back into jogging, that would be short-sighted. I have to make sure to be very careful with my foot, get it x-rayed to make sure it healed properly, do physical therapy, which I never technically did, eat the right nutrients to promote healing like calcium, vitamin D, vitamin C, and iron, and as painful as it can sometimes be, I have to stretch it. Once I know my foot's in amazing shape again, then I'll get back into jogging. People have healed from far more devastating injuries than this. You have to know when to accept something and when not to accept it. If I just accepted that my foot's done forever, it would be done forever. But if I refuse to accept it and apply consistent action from every possible avenue to heal it, since the injury is not that major, it's gonna heal. This is part of being on the hard path. Acceptance is often the easy path, though there are sometimes universal truths you just have to accept. Unacceptance is the hard path, and you can change an outcome that seems predetermined by just absolutely refusing to accept it and applying constant action that scientifically, mentally, and even spiritually changes the outcome. Another thing that's hard that I purposely did is, if you're only going to do something when the conditions for it are ideal, you're missing opportunities. You'd get way more out of jogging on a rainy day or a snowy day than you would when the weather's perfect. Every part of you is going to tell you that this isn't a good idea, that you need to stop and go back inside your home where it's warm. But again, refuse to accept that. Realize that even just doing that once will strengthen you quite a bit. If you do it, you've just done something a lot of people haven't done, choosing to stay out in harsh conditions to better yourself. That'll make jogging out in the sun feel like nothing. It'll feel like a joke. This is the hard path in that moment, but funnily enough, paradoxically, it's also the easy path in a way, because from that one activity, you've just made yourself stronger for the rest of your life. I also like to eat very spicy food to increase my pain tolerance. I'm like the direct opposite of those white people can't handle spicy food memes that aren't based on anything. I'm gonna eventually gear this series towards love and all that, don't worry. I've heard all of that self-development 1,000 times, I'm well aware of it. Love is very important, but the truth is, you should have different kinds of love for different types of people. Do you need to love a child molester? Why? The only love you should offer that guy is the love of, hey, he's a human too, I guess. And I'm not saying you even have to do that, but really, that's it. He does one of the worst possible acts you can ever do, and even that is trying to be normalized now. If every single person on Earth loved each other, that would be amazing. That would be a utopia. But all we could ever really achieve, through long periods of massive change, would be regular citizens loving each other. The elites are not capable of loving you. They're sociopaths and psychopaths. Real quick, a billionaire is not necessarily an elite. Not every single billionaire is bad. So, love is all you need is true in a lot of ways. Towards your own citizens and neighbors, that's great. Towards the bad elites, and not all of them are bad, but most of them are, no, love is not going to get us anywhere with them. We can love each other all we want, but they would still do everything they could to make us hate each other and would fuck with us in every way possible. If you want to just love and stay mostly where you're at, there's plenty of self-development out there that will help you do that. Loving yourself is very important, and loving others. But the goal of my self-development is for you to draw power out from every aspect of humanity that I know of. I'm going to give you every possible tool you can get to greatly thrive. I'm only doing this because, well, it's past 2020, I can do whatever I want. The world will outdo anything I try to do. And also, yeah, I'm giving all this stuff away, but how many will even watch these videos? If they do, how many will watch the whole thing? How many will listen to what was said with focus? How many will apply it to their life? How many will apply it to their life regularly? How many will apply it to their life regularly and at a high level? The answer is, the number gets less and less with each question I ask. I'm giving all of this away because only the ones who truly want to improve themselves will apply the advice, and those are the people I'm interested in. Learning the truth and facing it square in the face and gazing into the abyss with conviction is a big part of becoming your most powerful self. But learning the truth is complicated. Say you're on an island and you're stuck in a hut because you're a kid and you live there and for whatever reason your parents don't let you out. To you, that hut is your entire world. That's all you know. But one day you hear some sort of sound from outside, maybe a bird chirping. You wonder what's out there and you go explore. Suddenly your world expands. You were just learning the truth of your small hut, but your world just expanded. Now you realize that learning the truth is about learning about this island. But let's say the island had some big wall, and somewhere in the wall is a hole you can peek through. By exploring the island, you eventually come upon this hole. You peek through it and look out and you realize there are many islands and a giant sea containing them. Your worldview expanded again. You now realize that learning the truth involves adventuring to these islands. So you go explore those islands on a boat. One day you fall into the water. You then realize the liquid that was holding you up actually has an unfathomable depth to it. You then realize that there's truths down there that are hard to even access because of oxygen. Same with above you. There are tons of truths above you that you can't even really access and have to just believe in because you have no way of verifying it. So exploring and expanding your knowledge base is difficult, but I promise it will give you such a passion for life. But you need to be ready for the fact that on some of those islands, you'll come across things you won't like, and then you'll have to figure out how to come to grips with them. Choose the hard path. You've got this. Believe in yourself because I believe in you too. If you falter, just don't stay down.